originally gifted in 1976 to the Sierra Club Foundation. The owner wanted to set it up as a preserve in perpetuity, and so she gave the land to the Sierra Club, and they managed it for almost 30 years. And then they decided they were ready for somebody else to manage the land. So the land was transferred to the Coffeen Land Trust. And that's not to say we lost our Sierra Club members. We had 3 valiant members that transitioned to the Land Trust board, and they have helped to sail the ship on an even keel for 20 years, despite the tempests that they had to endure. So we're just going to send a little love first thing to Dave Wells, Carolyn Carr, and later on Charles Friley for all of their service. I wanted to share with you the love story between the 2 people who found this land down here and just absolutely fell in love with it. Here she is, Miss Dorothy Bushnell Coffeen. And then her ever-loving husband, John Coffeen. And it was actually Dorothy's brother, Robert, who found this land. He had been state attorney general for Massachusetts, but he really just wanted to be a chicken farmer. And in his poultry magazine, he discovered this land down here in Walton County. Initially, they purchased about 2,000 acres. It was 4 of them. Robert and his mom, and then Sister Dorothy and her husband. They purchased the land. It stretched all the way from the beach in 4 Mile Village over to the bay. So their boundary would have been Mac Bayou Road, and down at the end of Mac Bayou Road, there's a point on the bay called 4 Mile Point. So that's where the name came from. So they bought this beautiful piece of land. Uh-oh, there is something going on. Later that year, it was 1944, the very same year, Mary Bushnell finds that she is required to lease her 350 acres south of 98 to the military for their secret war effort. This wasn't something that they were particularly interested in doing, but they really had very little choice. So here we are in 4 Mile Village, down near the beach. This is actually Missile Hill Road. What is going on? They are building a ramp. So, very much interested in what the Germans have come up with, which is the first pilotless jet-propelled missile, their V1, V for Vengeance. The Americans were very interested in this. And here we have our campsite at Coffeen. The little house over on the right-hand side is actually the military mess hall, which housed the military. It housed Miss Dorothy. It housed her caretakers that took over after her, George and Lucille, and then it housed us for 15 years. And you can see we've got another ramp, a more angled ramp, going up in the background. This housed about 200 men, and as things became crowded, they did set up more camping, more rustic facilities over in what is now Topsail Hill Preserve State Park to the east. Nothing out here. The timber companies have come through, so it's a challenge. Here, they're just laying down the matting so that they can start bringing in this heavy equipment. And here we can see the second launch ramp under construction. The military were very interested in this site. Of course, this is all based out of Eglin Air Force Base. They picked this site because the height of the dunes and the elevation that it gave them. So the stretch of dunes along this beach, going into Topsail Hill Preserve State Park, this was the highest range of dunes along the whole coast between Pensacola and Panama City. On the tower on the right there is the observation tower, and the other tower that you can just see through the trees is our launch tower. Here we are taking another look at the observation tower. It's been somewhat reinforced. It's ready to go. Their first launch was in October of 1944, October the 12th. And here, we have our launch tower. It was all very high-tech. Our project manager, who's on launch duty that day, he has gone up the ladder. He's got his bird's eye view. He's observing the scene. When he sees that everybody's where they're supposed to be and nobody is in a precarious position, he's going to give the countdown. And we are going to have a launch. Here we can see the campsite moving along. We've got the horizontal ramp up the top. We've got the elevated ramp well under construction. And we can see a little band of sand up the top there with a viewing window. This was an incredibly thick concrete bunker. These things were so unpredictable, and the Americans were able to reverse engineer it. They had pieces parts. They had a couple that they had captured, probably from the European coast, either France or Belgium, that were whole, that were unexploded. They had everything, but they didn't have any instruction how to get this thing in the air. They had a lot of help from the French resistance. We got drawing, but a lot of this was trial and error. And here we are back down to the maintenance barn. This building's still in place today. There's a little building going up in the background. That probably went up as the chapel. In between the two buildings, we've got a missile there ready to go. And we can see what was going on in the barn. They were shipping everything down from Wright Field in Ohio. And so they were uncrating, putting them together here. Now we've got to get them down to the launch ramp. But here we go. We got a crane. So they dragged it down to the launch ramp. We've got Major Ezra Kocher, our project manager, hanging on in the middle there. And if you're interested, you can come and see who all the people are. And here it is. Here is the German V1 re-engineered to the American JB2. We've got it down to the launch ramp, and they've sat it on a sled. So the Germans had a problem. The post-jet engine that they had invented was not strong enough to get this thing in the air initially. It worked great once it was up there. But they needed an additional ignition thrust. So the Americans chose to try this method. They put it on a sled, and on the sled, they could attach rockets. So now we've got rockets firing a sled to launch a missile. Even more unpredictable. So yes, we need a bunker. So all of the cables ran into the bunker. You've got the guy on the launch control tower giving the countdown. There must have been somebody that this person could see through the viewing window. And when he was given the okay, he flipped the switch right there from inside the bunker. The sled would fall away. It usually fell in the shallow water. Our destined fishermen were out there, our enlisted destined fishermen were out there operating the crash boats to try and bring in whatever debris they could, and they would reuse those sleds if they could get them back up on the racks. And here are all our visiting dignitaries out for a field trip. And Bruce has got that picture. We've got major generals, we've got brigadier generals, we've got commanding generals, and they're all here enjoying the Florida sunshine. And here we've got one actually taking off. And here you can see the sled falling away, which was what it was supposed to do. They liked it better if it remained at the top of the dune, but that most of the time that didn't happen. We're in right field here. They're in the wind tunnel. This is where all of the pieces, parts that they picked up from about 40 sites around London were shipped back to. This is where they put this thing together and figured it out before they were all brought down here to be tested. And here we are back in Coffeen. We've got a bunch of them laying around, covered in tarps. And here we are, now we've got a good heavy-duty bunker down by the lake, by the elevated ramp. And today we've also got the Navy out on a field trip. Obviously the Navy were interested because somehow the Americans have got to get these to Japan. The goal was to go against the Japanese. But unfortunately, that did not come to pass. America changed tactics and dropped the atom bomb, and with the second, the Japanese unconditionally surrendered, so these were never actually used in combat. Here is another American attempt at Coffeen. So they were unable to copy the German method. What the Germans did, they combined a couple of chemicals. One of them was hydrogen peroxide, so that they could get this chemical combustion effect to give them their initial thrust. But America didn't have the available raw materials, and they didn't have the factories, and time was of the essence. So they were going to try something else. So they tried steam, and this is the steam generating plant. The steam would give them enough of a catapult effect to get this thing barreling up the ramp. And this is the elevated ramp that was powered by the steam-producing plant. So all we have left now is the concrete base of that monstrous tea kettle, if you will, and the concrete footings that supported the ramp. But they're still there in Coffeen.
A model of the new U.S. buzz bomb is displayed by engineers at the Army Air Force's Air Technical Services Command, Wright Field. In its actual size, this adaptation of the German V-1 has been subjected to exhaustive wind tunnel tests, as shown in these Air Force's films. Now the American buzz bomb is flight tested. The carriage, which acted as a catapult, drops away, and the robot flies toward the target on its own power.
That was the chase plane up the top. They, if these things went off course, and they had a route of entry guidance system, and they went off course, the chase plane was supposed to be able to shoot them down. But a lot of the time, they couldn't keep up with them. They did shoot one down when it reached 6,000 feet. All right, so that was what was going on, and I added a couple of these. These are from Eglin's collection. And as you can see, a lot of unpredictability. This was not a good day. And then our last one here. They're working on the pulse jet engine, but as you can see, they have got their handheld fire extinguishers at the ready. So that was all that's going on. Here's Mary and Robert and Dorothy and John. They, unfortunately, are stuck with this lease. But once the war was over in 45, and the military left all of these deserted, rotting buildings behind, they were able to move in. Miss Dorothy, she was so enterprising, and they were such visionaries. So they renovated, expanded, and moved it into the mess hall. And their desire was to develop a small residential community for people who shared their passion of nature. The idea was, well, this is what she did. She took apart a couple of these cabins. She hired 3 laborers to begin with. So they actually moved a couple of them, set them down on lots down by the beach, and Dorothy started renting them out as vacation homes. And they actually made them very nice, except for the lack of air conditioning at the time. They even had little custom-built shelves in them. And the idea was that people would fall in love with it in her care. And then they were going to want to purchase something. And then they were going to want to build. And they were going to become Dorothy's neighbors. That was if she approved of you. You could not rent in Four-Mile Village from Dorothy Coffeen unless you had a personal recommendation. And Miss Sally is with us today. She's in her 90s. I said, well, how did you manage to buy a lot? She said, well, my husband was in the oil business, and we knew this gentleman in the business, and he knew Dorothy Coffeen. So he was our personal reference, and we were able to come in and rent a little cottage, and she persuaded Dorothy to sell. But you just could not walk in and say, I'd like to buy a piece of land. Miss Dorothy basically handpicked her first generation of builders. They were the people that she wanted as a neighbor. They were the people that she could feel had their passion for nature. So one aspiring early purchaser was Everett Eves. Dorothy made him wait 6 years before she sold him a lot. He had to rent with his family for 6 years before he was given a lot by the lake. You didn't always get to buy the lot that you wanted. Dorothy would allocate a lot to you. And Dick Bennett, builder of Destin's first high-rise in Destin, the Hawaii High, which had a nice revolving bar up on the top floor, he came in one day with his lady wife to meet Miss Dorothy. And she asked him what he did, and he told her he was very proud. And he said, well, Mr. Bennett, there is absolutely nothing for you here. And I said, sir, she showed you the door. And he said, yes, but she was such a gracious lady. She did it so gracious. So what else did Dorothy get up to? All right, here we have an aerial shot of the place. We're looking down over Lake Fuller, which is in the Coffeen Nature Reserve. We've got some houses along the beach, we've got some houses along the lake, and then we drift into what is now Topsail Hill Preserve State Park. And our Lake Fuller connects to their Lake Morris. We have this wonderful joint ecosystem. Well, in the 60s, Dorothy heard that the Department of Transportation had plans. They were going to carry the beach road 30A through what is now Topsail Preserve, in through her property, and out where 98 joins the old 98 up there in the Sandestin area. She was a professional writer. She was not having this. She, like Winston Churchill, with her ability to use words in intense and unusual ways, she embarked on a letter-writing campaign and mustered support from conservation groups to contact federal and state legislatures. So we've probably got Audubon, we've got the Sierra Club, and this resulted in the rerouting of 98 and initially saved what is now Topsail Hill Preserve. Of course, at the time, it was still all in individual ownership. They were her neighbors. But so we have Miss Dorothy to thank for Topsail. And years later, she did the same thing again when Sandestin were trying to encroach on her property from the north side. she prevented 98 coming into the property. So what is in that little area that I just showed you? It's a hydric hammock. And what is a hydric hammock? Well, it is an unusual, natural, thriving community in favorable environmental conditions. So our hammock, which is partially in Coffeen and partially in Topsail Hill Preserve, is predominantly, the upper stories, predominantly water oak and live oak. And this is our side of the hammock. This photograph is actually taken from our management plan. And we've got huge southern magnolias in there, amongst other things. This is where our eagle's nest is. Our eagle's nest has a number. It's WL7009. It is registered and monitored with the Audubon program. It has been monitored since 2017. And we've been knowing about it since 2017. They've been monitoring it since 2000. And they're back. The eagles are back this spring, and they are nesting. And it looks beautiful. And you could come on a hike and you could walk out there if you like. But it is a thriving community of other things as well. The ticks are pretty horrendous, and so are the chiggers. So you would need a serious pair of hiking boots if you were ever to undertake this. And given how tiny this little preserve is, in order to perpetuate the protection, all public use of the preserve is by reservation. It's for individuals and small group under responsible leadership for educational, historical, observational, and scientific purposes. And the covenant and restrictions and deed restrictions protect the land in preservation in perpetuity. Any future owner must be an established not-for-profit with the same mission. It can never be developed. Let's see, 80s into the early 90s, they're wanting to develop Topsail Hill Preserve State Park. Well, so folks in 4 Miles say, we've got this beautiful hammock. We share it with them. Couldn't we possibly save the hammock? So old George, he's appointed to the 4 Mile Village Property Owners Association Board. He heads up the committee to save the hammock. He goes out with his video camera and he starts recording all the way into Topsail Preserve. Now, unbeknownst to them at the time, the state was already after them, and the Nature Conservancy was working on behalf of the state, trying to facilitate this acquisition. So, organizing citizens for the preservation of Topsail Hill, we've got residents including old George and his wife Mickey. We've got Marion and Jim Ludlam. There was actually a butterfly garden dedicated to them in Topsail. We've got John and Sandy Wright, and they partner with the Nature Conservancy. So now they're 1,300 members strong. And they lobbied local officials and Governor Lawton Charles and the cabinet for years. It took about a decade. Old George, with the help from his old Washington law firm, uncovered improper local financial transactions that ultimately led to a savings and loan collapse. As a result, approximately 20,000 acres came up for auction. So, with the help of the Choctawhatchee beach mouse and the red-cockaded woodpecker that were now uplisted to endangered species in need of protection, the state purchased it all with Preservation 2000 funds. Preservation 2000 was an aggressive land conservation purchase program of tax dollars, and this was voted for by the Florida citizens. And this includes Deer Lake, Grayton and Topsail Hill Preserve State Parks, and the Point Washington State Forest. Now, to hear old George, as he called himself, tell the tale, you can go back to the website. You can go into the Naturalist Corner, page 2. You will find the beautiful video by Elam Stoltzfus on the coastal dune lakes. And you can watch it in its entirety on the website or reach out to Live Oak Productions. It is an absolutely beautiful video, and George does tell the history of 4 Mile in a section. And I have a wonderful update. We just managed to have a prescribed burn, which is a very difficult challenge for us, given our urban interface of Sandestin condominiums, the hospital, but it is something that is really necessary when you are in the business of managing land, because it's not if we have a forest fire, it's when. So the idea is to remove all of this woody understory. You're opening it all up for the grasses and the plants to feed the wildlife, but you're also reducing what they call the fuel fire load. And we've had a very difficult time with finding companies to be able to help us to do this. So this company was ready to burn, and in one day they knocked out 77 acres. Very professional, no problems, no smoke on the road. So we're patting ourselves on the back. There's my ever-loving husband, Bruce. And we've got Chris Hawthorne, who is the manager of Topsail Hill Preserve State Park. He is our newest board member. He is in there helping. They are not allowed to let their rangers come onto our property because the insurance doesn't cover them, but they brought their equipment to the fence line, their big pumper truck, and anything else that they could use to help us out with this. And they were ready to go. Taking you back, another community partner that we work very close with is South Walton Turtle Watch. They actually will dig the nests after they're hatched. They'll count the eggshells, determine how many hatchlings made it out, but they may also find some weaker hatchlings in the bottom of the nest, which they will then take to the beach and allow to imprint down the beach, which these turtles have to do so that they will know how to come back. This is way back about 15 years ago. This was the first recorded leatherback hatchling nest in Walton County. Obviously not the first leatherback nest, but just for the South Walton Turtle Watch organization. These are, you will see them much more on the Atlantic coast. They don't come along our beaches as often, but they do. So there were 2 little hatchlings, Hope and Spirit. And the call went out. We had red tide moving in from the east. And the call went out, and I said, we're fine here at 4 Miles. And they were able to bring them in, and they released them there. So that started our partnership with South Walton Turtle Watch. The state parks, they monitor their own turtle nests, and they also close at sunset. And Turtle Watch has been coming to our beach, being tucked up against the state park. We are one of the least lit areas along the beach. And along under the condos now, because the turtle hatchlings get so disoriented, they will just cage them. And they will bring them into 4 Mile, and they'll let them do their imprinting there, and they'll release them after dark. Ah, here we are. This is during our time in the mess hall. We had a visitor. And I did take this picture, but I am way far away. My little Canon camera had a good lens. He's actually checking out Bruce, who is inside there. So, bears are an issue. But what do? Well, you get yourself a bear-resistant garbage can. So here is our old military workshop, still in use today. And here's our first batch of garbage cans coming in. And I bring this up because it is a real partnership between our homeowners and the preserve. And the Property Owners Association went ahead and purchased a can for everybody so that we could get everybody on board. And it really has cut down on the bear-human interactions. The lids are really heavy. And then you have to put your finger in to make the mechanism work. And the bears haven't quite figured that out yet. So that is our story. And in closing, I just want to share a letter that Dorothy wrote after her husband passed away. And it was because of his love of nature that she wanted to set up the remaining lots that they hadn't sold into what is now the Nature Preserve. And she says, there exists a hope that the life now at rest may give a message. I desire that John be remembered for his deep love of this beautiful area and its unique loveliness that he so revered. We made of them a sanctuary and haven for all of God's creatures, human and otherwise, who needed what they offered. We welcomed those people who were able to feel that way with us. Over the years, many hundreds have come and have cherished memories of a place where their lives were refreshed by close communication with nature's fundamentals and the peace of virgin lands. And then I think these words are so apt today when we consider the future of our precious Topsail Hill Preserve State Park, Point Washington State Forest, and all the other lands owned by we the people. The little corners you possess, preserve them tenderly. Do what you can to preserve the wilder areas, to protect the wildlife and beautiful native growth. Once pushed aside, they cannot ever be again. Please know that this earnest plea to all who have love in their hearts for a region God made in exceptional beauty comes to you from our own loving and revering it. So